Welcome to the Woodturning Workshop. I have a great feeling about today's show. We got the perfect project. A little bit of wood turning, a little bit of metal spinning. Stay tuned.
The Woodturning Workshop is made possible in part by
Woodcraft, since 1928, providing traditional and modern woodworking tools and supplies to generations of craftsmen. Woodcraft, helping you make wood work.
Tormek, water-cooled sharpeners with innovative jigs and setting devices. Getting your sharpening done quickly gets you back to the job at hand. Tormek, sharpening innovation.
Well, this is a really cool project we're doing today. For you who haven't turned very long, this is easy to do. We're going to make 4 simple spindles and then 2 little platters, one for the top, one for the bottom to hold it all together. And for those of you who've been turning for a while, we're going to have a little bit of fun at the end of the show. We're going to do some metal spinning. That's a very advanced technique, but it's a lot of fun. It's something else you can do on your lathe rather than turn wood. And speaking of wood, we're going to be using teak. And teak is an excellent wood for outdoors. It holds up to about everything. And we're going to make 4 spindles out of 1-inch square by 6.5-inch long wood. And this is a 9-inch circle. And this is going to be the base and the top. We're going to make 2 of these for our bird feeder. Now, I've set my calipers here, and I'm going to draw a 7.5-inch circle right now, because this will help me reference, whoops, get it back in the hole there, help me reference where we're going to drill the holes that will hold the spindles that will go in here later like that to hold everything together. Now I want to take this to the bandsaw, and we're going to cut this out, and my safety goggles are found them. I'm organized. Okay, back to the bandsaw. We just want to follow the outside of the line here, and we're making sure that we're cutting the outside line, not the inside line. It's a bad thing, and don't ask me why I know. Wind up with a much smaller bird feeder. There we go, we're getting close. Take our time, keep your fingers clear of the blade. Voila, made it again. Okay, it's one of those days. You know, I drew this inner circle to talk about how to draw the holes out that we're going to need to drill to hold this thing together. And I forgot to show you that while it was square, but hey, this works while it's round too. I have a little tiny dot there. I don't know if you can see it, but that's where my compass point was. And I'm lining this up across it, and so that is a straight line that cuts this perfectly in half. Now, how do I get my next line parallel? Well, this is a right angle. I bring this up to the dot which marks the center. There we go. Now I'm straight in line with there. I draw this. Now I have my line going across. Just come back up here, get it lined up, and draw it across. Now, that's where I'm going to drill each one of my holes. So I'm going to grab my awl before we go to the the drill press, and just push a little hole into each one, because that'll give me a good starting point for the bit I have on my drill press. And it's a brad point bit. It's a drill bit with a tiny point in the center. It's really sharp, so it helps you to line things up a lot easier. Okay, so now I've got that. Let's go over here. I have a 1/2-inch drill bit mounted in the drill press, and the way I line this up, there's a little tiny point down there, and now I can take that down, line it up really easily on that hole I punched in there. And I've got this set right now to drill only a 1/2 inch deep. So I'll go in here, and I've drilled my hole, blow everything away so I don't have this resting on any chips, because the chips will make it uneven. There we go. So now I'm just going to drill the other 3 holes out, and then we're going to get to do some turning. Okay, with all the holes drilled, we now want to mount this on the lathe, and we're going to use our chuck with a worm screw. We've used this in the past. It's really cool. It goes right into the jaws, and then you tighten the jaws down on it, and it holds that screw in nice and tight. Now to space this out to where I won't be turning and hitting the screw, I've made myself a disc here, which is a spacer disc, and I'll just screw that on right now. This is just composite MDF type material, it's nothing special. Now one trick on this, teak is very hard wood, it likes to tear out. So before I get this screw protruding too far, I'm going to take this and try to center it up on there. If I can see well. I should be able to feel it pop in. There we go. Now I'm going to start screwing that on there. And the teeth are grabbing now, so I'm going to try to keep the disc up against this disc of wood as I bring it in. Get it in tighter. That's going to keep it from ripping the wood out as it screws in. It sounds a little strange, but it makes sense in the long run. So let's get that nice and tight. Okay, now that's on there really good. We're going to turn two discs and they're identical. So I went ahead and turned one already, and you can see we're dished out here. This is the bottom, and actually this is going to be the top, but it's the bottom of the top. It's going to be like that. And then this has got a nice curve to it to give it some shape. So we're going to be turning this side first. So anyway, let me get, I got my eye protection, and we're going to take a 1/2 inch bowl gouge and bring this up here, set my tool rest, make sure nothing's hitting, and we're going to round out this edge first. Start it at a slow speed. I'll turn the lathe on first. And then we hit the button and it works now. You turn it off and it works. You turn it on and it works. Oh, jeez. Now that we've completely covered turning on and off the lathe, we'll bring the speed up. Okay, there we go. That's going nice and good. And we just want to take a couple of passes here and just clean up the edge. Now, if your discs are a little bit different diameters once you're done, don't worry about it. That's why we already drew and drilled the holes in the discs, so our spindles will match up perfectly no matter what we do to the outside of these. Okay, that looks good. Turn this off. Now I want to start working on the face here. And teak is a really cool wood, very tough, but it does turn well. In a minute you'll see also it takes scrapers really well. Let's get the tailstock out of the way. I don't need that for right now. Oh, okay. Bring that up just a little bit more. Bring that down just a little bit. I want this to where my bowl gouge is right about at center level. So we're going to start here. I'm going to start nibbling from the middle and work my way out. I want to go in about 1/4 inch here. We don't want to go too deep because we'll hit the screw down in there. But we want to have a bit of addition here so when we put the birdseed in here, it has an area to set. Now, you might not like the idea of having a hole in the bottom and top of your feeder, but it's going to serve two purposes. For the top part of the feeder, we'll be passing a cable through there in which to hang this. And on the bottom part, if it starts raining or anything, we now have a drain in the center to get the water out. So that's something to think about when you're designing something like this for the outdoors. You have to consider, you know, is it going to rain on it? Is it going to snow on it? And what's going to happen? Because nobody likes wet seed. Believe me, the birds will let you know about it. Well, I've got my shape the way I want it. It looks, one thing about teak is it wants to tear out a lot. So we're going to take a scraper and we're going to clean up the bottom of this. And that's where teak is wonderful because it takes a scraper beautifully. I'm going to take this up just a little bit above center. I'm going to taper it down. You can see on this I have a slight radius on this because I want to sweep it. I don't want edges digging in. If that's perfectly straight, it'd mess it up. And you can see it's a little tough, but we have torn grain in here. Take my word for it, it's there. There's lots of it. But anyway, I'm also making a very tiny relief right here because if, perchance, this wants to tear out while I screw and unscrew it off of the screw chuck, that'll reduce the chance of that happening. But I'm just leveling this out. I'm working my way from the center outwards. Direction really doesn't matter because this is pretty flat right here. And you can see I'm just taking little whispers of wood. Now I can't make the curve transition right here, but I can straighten this up because this is going to be a little bit out of round. And this also removed my pencil marks. It's nice to have a nice, freshly ground scraper. Isn't that beautiful? Now, to make the curve, I'm going to switch scrapers. We're going to put this one back up, and we're going to go with my big old round nose bowl scraper, and it's going to fit in that curve really nicely. We'll start this up, and we'll just start taking whispers of wood with it. It's got a shape which just fits in perfectly right there. And if you notice, I've got my relief edge on here, and that makes this very gentle. It's not a very aggressive cutter, so it won't take much wood off, but I don't want it to. I want to be able to sweep and make a really nice shape and blend it into what I just did with the other scraper, because when I stop this, you'll see that it's so smooth, I don't even want to sand that. That is fun. Okay, I've reversed this. I just finished scraping the top on it, so it's nice and smooth. Now I want to put a nice curve on it that will match this curve here. The other thing about this curve is it's going to complement the curve we're going to make when we turn our metal or spin our metal. So a little bit of aesthetics going on here. I want to make everything match and look nice. So we're going to take our 1/2-inch bowl gouge, and we're just going to tack this. Whoops! I got to tack this in little bits. And we're going to do it slower than that. There we go. Okay. I'm still having one of those days, you know? Okay, got to put it in here. Going to push. Let it run. You don't want to push all the way because your tool will skate off once it runs out of wood. So we come up to where it's almost finished going around the curve, and then we stop. So we're going to come back. You don't want to push too fast. You'll start jumping if you push too fast. Too hard, too quickly. Now I want to stop this for a second because we're going to adjust our tool rest. We're going to turn it a little bit more this way so I can come around and have more support for the cut. And it's looking pretty good. Got 2 more cuts and we should be there. I'm pushing with my right hand. My left hand holds the tool down on the tool rest to keep it from jumping. And I just move my body. And we're going to come up right up to that edge very gently. There we go. We did it in 1 cut. We got our curve done. Let's see how that surface looks. Okay. That came out very nicely. We'll just touch that up with a little bit of sandpaper this time. The end grain on this is really tough, but I think it'll come out nicely. Well, now we're ready to do the spindles, and that kind of brings me to aesthetics for a moment. I did design this for a beginning turner, so they're very simple shapes, but at the same time, simple is sometimes better. We have an elegant curve up top, we have a nice curve down at the bottom that complements it. You could put a bunch of beads in there, a bunch of other work, but it would be over design. This is nice and simple and elegant. And to tell you the truth, the birds are only interested in the food. They don't really give a flip about how nice it looks, to tell you the truth. And the food's free, so they're gonna be happy. Okay, so we're gonna take our spindle. I have a drive center in here, which is a special one. It has a little spring in it. So I'll show you as I push here. See the tip going in and out there? That's really cool. Now I've used this in another show, and it's a production tool for people who are turning a lot of spindles at one time. So I've got that matched up on center. I'll bring my tailstock in on this side. Lock that down. Okay, that's nice and tight. So now we're gonna get ready to rough this out. And since it's been one of those days, the nice thing is I can always depend upon Bob, the genius of the jig, to help us out. So he's got a great tip for us today. Thank you, Bob. That was very insightful information. Oh, we got another minute left? Okay, well, we're going to show you how to rough out very slowly. You grab your roughing gouge, check to make sure everything's clear, and then you turn it on. Bring our speed up a bit, and we're going to do this in stages. We're going to rough out our spindle to 3/4 of an inch. But the first thing I want to do is get it smooth. Now once it's smooth, I'm going to grab a parting tool. There we go, we're close enough there. I'm going to grab my parting tool, bring it in here. I have my caliper set for 3/4 of an inch. There we go. I'm going to mark it in 2 places and 3 places. There we go. Now, get my roughing gouge again, and we're just going to level it down to those marks. It's a very quick, easy thing to do. My tool rest is parallel to the lathe, so I know I'm making a perfectly straight line. There we go, that looks good. Now I'm just going to come back and very gently make a cleaning cut, so I won't have to sand or do very little sanding at all. Now, your spindles don't have to be exactly 3/4 of an inch. I mean, you know, all of them exactly 3/4 of an inch. Your eye will fool you into thinking that they're all about the same size. Now, one cool thing about this spring is I can loosen my tailstock, take this off, pop the next blank on there, rough it down. Pop it off, put the next one, rough it down. That way, when you're turning several of one thing, you can stay in the zone and just use one tool and keep going back and forth between the tools. But I've already turned the other ones, so I'm going to go ahead now, and the next step is to turn a tenon on each end that's a half inch in diameter, that's going to fit in the holes that we drilled already. So there we go, and I just want to make this about 1/4 inch long on this end. There we go, maybe 3/8 of an inch. I don't want to bottom out in the hole. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, and then we're ready to start moving on to metal spinning. Well, this is looking pretty good, but it needs a little bit more bling. And that's where the metal spinning comes in, because we want to make a top that'll fit on here, complement our shape, and really make it look nice and shiny. Also, this metal will provide a lot of protection, and as it ages, this copper will turn into a nice verdigris color, which is kind of green, and it'll look really cool. Well, where do you start when you're doing metal spinning? Well, you need a couple things. First thing you're going to need is you need a metal spinning tool. Now, there are lots of tools, but for the project we're doing today, we just need this simple shape. It's flat here, rounded here. We're going to be using this flat. It's really, really smooth and really, really polished. A friend of mine, Dave Haupt, made this for me, and he's been giving me tips on this because I'm pretty new to metal spinning and I needed some help. The whole idea here is not to teach you exactly how to do it, but we're going to get you excited about it, and there are a lot of information on the web and resources where you can find out more about metal spinning. So where do you start? First thing is you need to make a shape, and this is going to be the form that we're going to spin the metal to, because in effect what you're doing is you're taking a flat piece of metal and bending it to the shape. So this form has to be perfect. It has to be the way you want it. It has to have that nice curve and nice look. No defects, because if there's any problems with this wood, it'll show up in your metal. And that brings us to the metal. You need copper that's probably about 18 gauge or so. Well, as my day continues, we had miscommunication with people who were providing the metal, and they sent me 12 gauge. So it's kind of like trying to turn steel. This is really, really thick. So we're not going to get as big a curve as we wanted, but we'll get enough of a curve to show you what we're trying to get. So once we have this made, we got to have a way of putting the metal on there and pinching it, and you need what's called a follow block. And that is a block that is shaped to match the top curve of your blank perfectly. So when it sits on here, it's smooth, and so it pinches the metal between there. Now, this is a live center with a thread on here. Simply drilled a hole in a blank of wood so I could thread this on here, and then I turn this to shape. So now let's go get this all mounted up on the lathe and see what we can do with this nice thin piece of copper. Okay, now we have our shape mounted on a very large faceplate. It might be a little overkill, but hey, we need all the support we can get. Ow! I forgot to tell you about that part. There's a nail sticking out of the center of this thing. Since we're going to have a hole going through our copper to hang this bird feeder up, I put a nail in there, drilled a hole in here to help me center this up. It's much easier that way, a little more painful, but see, the little nail goes through there like that. But centering up metal spinning is kind of an advanced technique if you don't have a hole in your disc. So this will help us do that very easily, and we're going to bring that in there nice and tight. Now I want to make sure my tailstock is cranked in really, really good. I want a very tight fit here. So we're going to lock that down, and guess what? Hey, I'm going to grow too because I need to be taller. You like these? Made them myself. I got to be a little bit taller because I need an angle to be able to work this tool. And to work the tool, I also need a different type of tool rest. And this is a metal spinning tool rest. It has removable pegs, and you can put these in here in the positions that you need, because as we use our tool, they're leverage. We bring the tool up into here like that, and we use it to press against it like so. So probably on this disc, we're only going to need one position, but I have two there just in case. Kind of like it up here. I want the tool rest to be a few inches away from the piece though, because unlike other turning where we want to be really close, we need to be a little bit away to be able to work this. So, got that locked down. I want to turn my lathe down to a moderate speed. We're going to start it up, put these on. Okay, so things are going good. I want to make sure again everything's nice and tight. And I've got, this is a lubricant that is made for metal spinning. And we're just going to put it on here, just like you'd run wax on a project that we've done in the past. There we go. And you can see this is a little bit out of round, but that's just part of the game. So, I'm going to pick the speed up a little bit more. And I want to start from the inside and start working my way out. Let's see what my angle is right here. You can probably do it right here. So, I'm up against here nice and tight. I've got this underneath my arm. You can see, so I've got a lot of leverage here. And now I'm going to bring the flat side of the tip into the metal. Now once I get going, I got to keep moving because you're building up heat and pressure, and you don't want to stay in any one spot too long. So we start working it like this, come back, work it like this, and we're starting to deform the metal. So I'm pushing really hard because again, this is 12 gauge, which really can take it out of you. There we go. I got to work my edge here a little bit, and I'm trying to get even a little bit taller if I can. Okay, it's starting to come down to deform. If we look at it from this side over here a little bit, you can see it's starting to shape. There we go. I'm not talking because I'm breathing hard right now, trying to get this to go. Oh man, this is really a challenge to work something this thick. And I tell you what, the way the day's been going, I don't think I'll be able to make this work. Because that curve is supposed to be going that way right now. It about killed me getting the other one done because 12, this is a good lesson. 12 gauge is not the gauge you want to use, but you can see I managed to get it to curve before. But I'm just getting too old to try to do this. But you have the idea. Honestly, it really works when you do it the right way with the right thickness of metal. So what I'll do is with this one, I'm going to show you how we can use a vacuum chuck to polish and clean this one up. Well, vacuum chucking is a great way of remounting this so you can now polish it up, and this one's a pretty cool system because it runs just off my compressor. I don't need anything other than this box and a couple hoses. You remember my compressor, don't you? You think I would have learned from the last time. Move your hose away from the grinder. Ah, jeez Louise. Seems like I have one of those days all the time. Anyway, I'm going to take some synthetic steel wool. Got to start with the gray. You just run it along here. Polishes it up nicely. I use the white, and you can see that little piece of green. That's the tape I'm using to cover the hole in this so it doesn't fly off. You can't do a vacuum with a hole. But anyway, once you've done this, oh! Okay, well, the idea is that you turn the lathe off, then you turn the vacuum chuck off. You know, I'm just gonna go out and feed the birds now because I can at least depend on them. Heck with it, I'm done. Oh, that's so good. Thank you, nice man, for the feeder.
The Woodturning Workshop is made possible in part by
Woodcraft, since 1928, providing traditional and modern woodworking tools and supplies to generations of craftsmen. Woodcraft, helping you make wood work.
Tormek, water-cooled sharpeners with innovative jigs and setting devices. Getting your sharpening done quickly gets you back to the job at hand. Tormek, sharpening innovation.
next time on the Woodturning Workshop.
We're gonna have Stuart Batty. Hey!
Welcome to the Woodturning Workshop with Stuart Batty. Today I'm going to be making a beautiful off-centered square bowl. I can skim the surface with this guy and it works like a cabinet scraper, and then this gouge will end up hitting the side of the bowl at a certain point right here.
Hey, Brian, stop tape, I'll be right back.
Until next time on the Woodturning Workshop with Stuart Batty.
For more information about the Woodturning Workshop, visit our website at rsupublictv.org.
And anytime. No, you're not dead. You have to snore. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
A loud snore.
You really want to
Yeah,
snore?
anytime.
Okay, just
Yeah, oh yeah.
that's enough.
Okay, one more. I'm gonna get it tight. So just one more time.
To purchase a copy of this program, please call 1-800-823-7210 or visit our website, rsupublictv.org.
This week on the Woodturning Workshop, we got the perfect project for you. A little bit of wood turning, a little bit of metal spinning. Once I get going, I gotta keep moving because you're building up heat and pressure. But anyway, once you've done this, I'm just gonna go out and feed the birds now because I can at least depend on them. Thank you, nice man, for the feeder.